So we are now live streaming, and just to recap, I advised Mr. Wargo of the charge that he was convicted of and the maximum penalty, and we've reviewed the pre-sentence report by the defense. No corrections, no objection to the scoring of the guidelines, and same for the people. And then I was asking whether there was a victim who wished to be heard.
Thank you, Your Honor. The victims themselves did not wish to speak before the court today. However, the people would like to address the court if possible.
Okay, let me just.
And I can speak up too if need be for recording.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, go right ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think the biggest concern in Mr. Wargo's case on behalf of both the people as well as the family, the Kane family, is the way that this case played out. Mr. Wargo was driving through a turn lane and struck this family's vehicle head on in a collision. The family, quite literally the entire family, was in that vehicle. Mother, father, and their 2 children, all of which were obviously affected by this. The women, the mother and the 2 female children, had suffered injuries as a result of this case. Mr. Wargo, as police reports describe it, was up coherent, walking around at the scene of a crash, yet his blood alcohol content was a 0.212. I certainly think this is indicative of a serious issue that needs to be addressed. The idea behind the plea offer and the sentencing that was discussed with the Kane family was that Mr. Wargo needs intervention, needs services, but also needs accountability and to be held accountable for what's taken place. The idea behind asking for his upfront jail to be capped at 12 months was to allow him to have some sort of level of accountability through incarceration, but then also to have oversight from this court with services to be put into place. As we do feel as though just sending him to prison would not address the underlying problem. And quite honestly, we don't want to run the risk of a future incident taking place where the family's not as lucky as the Kane family to have been able to walk away from this suffering, yes, bodily injury, but all being alive. And quite honestly, the entire family could have been gone in this one incident. And so we would ask the court to honor the Hillbrook agreement. However, we don't feel as though the 90 days that is recommended in the PSI is appropriate. We would ask the court to consider a longer period of incarceration for Mr. Wargo, but with the understanding that yes, services and intervention need to take place to ensure that this doesn't happen again, and that we don't have something worse on our hands the next time. I think that is what the Kane family ultimately wanted the court to be aware of, that they're looking, trying to stop the cycle that's taking place here, but also to have the court recognize the impact this has had on them. Their daughters have suffered significantly since this, both physically but mentally as well. The family certainly suffering themselves going through it, but also having to watch their children continue to suffer, and wanted the court to be aware of the magnitude of that side of this, on top of the fact that Mr. Wargo has a history of substance use issues involving alcohol. So we would ask that you take all of that into mind when issuing your sentencing. I did confirm with them that the restitution has been taken care of to the civil side of this through insurance. There isn't any sort of restitution that would need to be ordered at this time for the victims. I do know that the cost recovery was sent to the court and is included in the PSI. We'd ask that that be included as a part of restitution. But as it relates to the Kane family, they would not need anything additional at this time.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, your turn.
Thank you. I'd like to present something to you that I gave to the pre-sentence report writer at the Department of Corrections, and only 2 of the letters were mentioned in that. And I don't know whether or not the package that was sent over at their request has actually hit your desk or not.
I'll take a look at
And
it.
this is an exact copy of it. It shows remedials and remedials only. By the remedials, I take that back. There's also a series of letters, 2 of which that were addressed by the Department of Corrections, and the other 2 were not. The other 3 were not. In that package, Your Honor, there is an assessment that indicates the nature of my client's thinking process, and it gauges truth and veracity. There's also a thing from the Victim Impact Panel. There's also something there from these 2 sponsors that he has through AA. There's also something there from his enrollment in the long-term PATS program, prevention and training. And under the circumstances, there's something from the agency that he does with 5 separate units, his community service that he took on himself without my instructions. He is a Catholic fellow, and he believes that a lifetime of penance is involved in this. So he did it on his own. He's done over 300 hours at this particular point in time. He has no thought about ceasing this. Further, there's another 2 letters from 2 chair people from New Hope meeting, of which he is presently the 43rd chair, the oldest meeting in Michigan. It's a meeting that attorneys, and doctors, and circuit judges and others attend on a regular basis. They thought enough of him and his enthusiasm and sincerity to ask him whether he would like to chair along with an old timer. And that's what he's been doing since last August. And the second letter is also, it's a professor from Michigan State who was also past chair of that particular meeting. That is the materials that I presented to the Department of Corrections that you see in front of you. As far as allocution, if it's time, let's say just a few words. This individual, he's in his mid-50s. He has come into a family years ago, and he has raised 5 children of his present spouse. He has been crime-free all of his life, except 2 decades ago, he had an impaired driving and then a drunk driving with 2 within 7. And that's where he stands now. He's from Illinois, no problems with his family, crime-free. His Ukrainian American family, and he came to Michigan to marry his wife and start his business. He's a glazer. I don't know why he didn't get it through his head the first time when he was younger that he had a difficulty with alcohol. He probably had, with impaired driving, probably had a social drinker's disposition. However, with the second one he had, I don't understand what occurred about that one. He basically did not take that to heart, so to speak, enough so that he, coming back from the Michigan State basketball game, he decided it would be okay to drive. Well, cunning, baffling, cunning is the key word. It's certainly mysterious, this alcohol thing. Is it a true crime of moral turpitude? Well, there's mixed opinions about that. It is certainly a psychological and physical demeaning deal. Ordinary people, they could get it as well as a career criminal. What I'm saying here is that when I first met Dan Warble, he walked into my office about a year ago, a little less than a year ago. No, a little more than a year ago. This happened on March 3rd of last year. And I listened to what he said, and he was broken up about things. And I said, you know, things happen for a reason. Nobody died here, thank God. They happen for a reason because they need to happen. And he did not believe me one single second of the time. He had no idea what I was talking about. But I'm a firm believer that sometimes it has to strike home before you realize what's going on. Call it fate, call it guardian angel, call it whatever you wish to call it. But under the circumstances, sometimes there comes a certain point in time where you will never, ever, one day of your life, forget what took place in the harrowing situation that took place on that evening, early March. I guess what I'm trying to express here is that over time, I told him I meet with him at least an hour, mostly 2 hours a week since this thing happened. I keep a good track of him. I care about him. I wish that he'd come to a certain point in time where he could say, it's water under the bridge now. I've learned a lesson from this, but he hasn't arrived at that place yet. I don't know whether he ever will. Everyone's made differently. But I will say one thing. I believe I read him all about People versus Cole and the mandates that a circuit judge or any judge in sentencing has to deal with. I talked about the punishment factor and what it is. I think that he is constantly punishing himself. I truly believe that. I believe he has been impacted. I also believe that he's done every remedial thing he could possibly do in the meantime to say, I need to pay back to society what I've done. I don't want to, this is not my example I want to leave to anyone. But certainly the middle element, the third element, you have to send a message to society, and he understands the job that you have to do in that regard. If this happened again, what would it say if a message wasn't sent? I've gotten that through to him. He understands this. His emotion that he has about this is not alligator tears as some of my clients sometimes will display. It's sincere, in my opinion. I've been doing this for 44 years. I have a read on certain people, especially defendants that come in and I'm not dealing civil things with. So I guess my point here is Dan Wargo, I believe, has gotten this message. I know I'm his attorney. I'm supposed to say nice things about him, but I truly believe what I'm saying. Dan Wargo will continue in the fellowship of AA, a real meeting. I consider it to be the best meeting he goes to. He will continue to deal with this. He will continue to do whatever he can. Of course, if he could take it back, he would give maybe a decade of his life to take that back that moment. It's all about his expression of remorse to the Kane family, about the system that he's dealt with this, that he's dealt this upon. Dan Wargo, for all purposes, is an individual who I feel has been deeply impacted, very deeply impacted by this. And I think that the Kane family, and God, all of them are doing well according to what I read in the pre-sentence report from that side of the equation. Thank God about that. I don't know exactly how to express this, but the feeling that the Kane family has is one of the most charitable approaches I've seen. They really want help for him, that he doesn't ever do this again. They're not vindictive in the least. They're decent people. I think they shared the same dentist at one time, so there was kind of a touching as far as knowing at least Mrs. Kane. Yeah. So there is no, of course, contact any longer, but he just wishes to express his remorse and his sorrow towards this. And I say that it's as sincerely as I've ever spoken to a judge before.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Wargo, if you'd like to say something, I just need you a little closer to the microphone, that's all.
Oh, thank you, Your Honor. This is hard.
I know.
To the Kane family, I'm so sorry. I just, I don't know, if I could take it back, I would. I mean, there's no way I can. I'm doing everything I can with AA. I got, if I may, I got my 1-year coin, which I keep with me at all times. So
Congratulations.
thank you. It was a big leap of faith for them to have me chair the meetings. I do 3 or 4 nights a week on Zoom with AA, and Mission Recovery. Actually, as soon as I got out of jail, I called a friend of mine who's also a sponsor, and he works there, and he got me in working. And I mean, I'm there at least twice a week. I've been working. Right now I'm on Glass House working, and then the out of middle school that they're doing a community center in. I started working there. I got phase 1 done already on their glass. I'm waiting on door glass and stuff for that. And all I want to do is get my confidence, my community's confidence back in me. I know I got FaceTime. I know. I just I've got a really good supporting group behind me. I got the fellowship. I've got my family, my wife. Right now, my wife is in Maryland with my grandkids. I could have taken that from somebody. And I can't live with it. Just that thought, I can't live with. So I just know that I got more to give. And I do not ever want to drink again. I don't have a thought of it. I don't even think about it. I just know what I could have done, and I could have taken something very precious. And my wife sent me videos yesterday and this morning of the grandkids, and I could have taken that from somebody. I can't live with that. So, with that, I guess I'm done, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wargo, I can see that your remorse is sincere. And I have to say, you know, I really respect what you've done as far as on your own, going to the Victims Impact Panel, seeking treatments, going to support groups. I really respect that. I've always said, along the lines of what your lawyer said, anyone could find themselves in a situation where they have a substance issue, but it takes someone with courage to, look themselves in the mirror and say, yeah, I've got a problem and I'm going to do something about it. So, I do really give you credit for that. The problem is that it happened at the expense of the Kane family. And I don't doubt that it's a true wake-up call for you. I don't doubt that. But it is very, very unfortunate that it had to come in this fashion. I don't even think that, you need to make penance for the rest of your life. You really don't. But what you need to do is fix the problem. And you've gone a long way towards that already. And I think that that would be a source of comfort to the Canes as well, if, they knew and had confidence that you had fixed the problem. No one can take back what they've done after they've done it. Everybody wants to, if only they could, but you can fix the problem, and that's the best penance that a person can do. So, yes, you've done great. We need to make sure that you continue doing great. Because I know you say you don't think about drinking, but that day could still come.
Yes.
It can still come, as you know. I'm
Yes.
sure that you work the program, you work these groups, that, you have to work it every day, because that day could come and you have to keep at it. I was real good friends with a guy who was a heroin addict, and then he had an severe alcohol addiction, and finally kicked the whole thing. He runs the RISE program, the sober living homes in Lansing. And, he said to me, like, you can't forget one single day you're an addict, not one single day. And that was his key to ultimately succeeding, along with, the support groups and everything else that you're doing. So you've got to keep working at it. But as your attorney has correctly noted, as you have correctly noted, you don't just because you've done all those things, you don't just get to walk out the door of the courtroom. And there has to be some recognition of the seriousness of this, and some message to you, to everyone, to the Canes, that someone did have a consequence from this. Not just that someone went out and did a lot of programming and did a great job addressing the problem, but also had a real consequence. Those are both parts of the equation. So I'm going to place you on probation for a period of 24 months, 180 days in the Ingham County Jail with credit for 2 days served. You have to pay $130 to the Crime Victims Fund, $68 in state costs, oversight fees in the amount of $30 a month, restitution in the amount of $282.11 to Meridian Township Police Department, cost to the county in the amount of $500 based on the State Court Administrative Office calculated average cost for criminal case in Ingham County. Additional conditions of probation are no use or possession of controlled substances or being in bars or other places where alcohol is sold for consumption on site. No use of any controlled substances or possession of drug paraphernalia, no recreational use of marijuana or use of marijuana in violation of the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act. You must comply with both drug and alcohol testing as your agent directs. You must attend AA, NAN, or CA meetings as directed by your agent. You must complete outpatient or residential substance abuse treatment if you are referred. You must perform 480 hours of community service work as directed by your agent. You'll be on Scram Tether for a period of 90 days after you're released from the jail. You must not engage in any assaultive, abusive, threatening, or intimidating behavior, no contact with anyone. To have a felony record. You can't change your residence unless you first get written permission. You may not possess a weapon while you're on probation. These are standard conditions. We don't really think you're going to go out and do some of them. You must contact the agent no later than your first business day following your release from jail. You must comply with all the written and verbal orders of your agent. Let the agent into your home at any time. Submit to a search of your person or property without need of a warrant. report any changes to your agent within 24 hours. No contact with any member of the Kane family, either directly or through another person. You may not be within 500 feet of their residence, school, or place of employment. You must make genuine efforts to find and maintain employment a minimum of 30 hours per week. I'm going to ask too that while you are in jail, that if you're eligible, that you participate in the CATS program. That will do a couple things. It will seamlessly allow you to continue on with your treatment, and it will also give you credit for time against your sentence. And Mr. Wargo, you have the right to file an application for leave to appeal your conviction and your sentence in this matter. You're entitled to an attorney at public expense to assist you in doing that. If you're making a request for one, you have to make it within 42 days of today's date. It explains that more on the form that you have now received, and he does need to have that, Mr. Williams. And you should just know that the time of 42 days to ask for a lawyer to help you with an appeal starts running from today's date. Okay, so you can take that with you, Mr. Wargo, and you are remanded to the custody of the sheriff.
Thank you very much, Ron.
Thank you.
No, you just have to
Bring-
acknowledge
bring
it's
it
with
with
you. Nice to see you today.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Good luck.